Okay, so we have a new episode of Legends and Leaders, and today it's great to have Sami here. You're somebody that's been really innovative in a lot of different categories. Early on with real estate and making it accessible to understand properties, eventually to purchase properties. Through Trulia, you created something that set the background for the internet for what real estate could be on it. And now you're really have a great mission-driven company to help reverse type 2 diabetes without surgery, which is something that it would be ideal to have a process like that, and to prevent surgery. And type 2 diabetes is something many people have struggled with. So it's great that you're taking that on and focusing on that initiative. So I'm excited to have you here and to get into your story.
Well, Ben, thanks so much for having me, and thanks for the kind words.
Awesome. So where did your passion for entrepreneurship and technology begin? Like, did you always think that I'm going to be an entrepreneur when I'm young? How did this kind of passion start?
Well, obviously, I have a logical story to share, but the truth is, I don't know. But let me just say a few things. First of all, I grew up on a farm in southeastern Finland, on a farm, and my parents did not even go to high school, and there were no computers in the house. And so I did not have role models to be an entrepreneur, change the world, or build something. I also didn't have role models for sort of technology or professional careers. So I guess I'm a very unlikely entrepreneur in that sense, if you will. But what I can tell is sort of two things always excited me. One was my brain was always thinking what could be, what should be, what could you build? So I've always had that kind of desire or wiring in my head that I'm sort of seeing things or dreaming about things that don't exist, and then coming up with ideas in my head how to make that happen. And then secondly, I think this is matter of luck that I convinced my parents to get me a Commodore 64 and then Amiga 500 before I even turned 10. And so I think the first sort of entrepreneurial journey or product was I hacked together one of the first BBSs, so bulletin board system, pre-internet, at the age of 15 or something like that. And I ran that and I offered that service to people. Some people paid for the subscription, not a large number, like a very, very small number. But that experience sort of combined this, like, I want to build something that's useful for others, and then run it and try to make it work. And it was captivating. It was, not to use a drug analogy here, but it was like a captivating drug that I wanted to get more of.
So, Sam, you started out, working in a lot of different tech companies. You were at Nokia and Microsoft, and eventually McKinsey too. How did that lay the background and the foundations for you to eventually go and start your own?
Honestly, I think collecting those logos, if you will, Nokia, Microsoft, McKinsey, was about my insecurity. It was about my personal insecurity, meaning that, I grew up on a farm. I came out of there was no sort of stamps of approval, like, hey, this person might be able to do something. And I didn't have those stamps of approval for myself either. So I think big part of me wanting to work in those companies was like, well, if I get there and I do some useful work, it must prove to myself, first and foremost, that I'm a reasonably capable person. So I would say that was the reason why I worked at those companies, and wonderful companies. I had nothing against them. But I honestly wouldn't say, well, let me say one thing. It did build my self-confidence. But I wouldn't say that you have to work in sort of blue chip brand name companies to be able to be an entrepreneur. But I think the missing piece for me was that I needed some level of self-confidence before going out on my own.
So how did the idea for Trulia come about, and how did you meet your co-founder?
Yeah, so again, said many things about growing up in Finland, and Trulia obviously is an online real estate marketplace. Still, I think 50 million or something, tens of millions of Americans use it every month, and that's an American company in America. So maybe just one step there before founding Trulia. I came to America 2003, so crazy, more than 20 years ago. And I came through Stanford Business School, which wasn't the end goal. The end goal was to start something in Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
And Stanford was a way to get to US legally. And I highlight that because that's how I also met my co-founder, Pete Flint. And it's perhaps a funny story in that I was a physicist trained in Europe, fresh off the boat in America, knew nothing about residential real estate or even the US business environment. And my co-founder, Pete, was a physicist trained in Europe, Oxford, that is. And then he was my classmate at Stanford. And he didn't have any real estate experience either. So it was two Europeans, not knowing the industry. I think realizing that consumer internet was here to stay, and the way you could find autos at cars.com or AutoBytel, or you could find an airline ticket or hotel from hotels.com or Expedia, or find a spouse even, or life partner from match.com. The same transformation would happen by internet in real estate and finding your home. And it seemed like a wide open opportunity, and we both jumped into it. And yeah, that's kind of how it came about.
Huh. So that's, I guess it's a coincidence or whatever it is. I mean, similar backgrounds.
Yeah. Well, I would say one thing. Obviously, there's always like, how did you end up that very business? And maybe we'll talk about Verta in a second, which is very different. But my driving force at the time, 2003, 4, 5, was to build something, build anything. And so my excitement was really about being in Silicon Valley, hopefully building a product, hopefully building a service that people are willing to use and pay for. So there wasn't anything about the real estate specifically, other than at that point it seemed like a feasible, attractive business opportunity. So that was the driver for me personally.
Mm-hmm. And you were thinking that there really wasn't anything, like there was like for hotels, for travel, there just wasn't something for real estate. There like wasn't really anybody.
Yeah, it was. At the time, let's see. This is way back when. The world had moved from portal-focused world, from the Yahoos and Lycos of the world, to search-centric world. We had Google, but Google was and still is kind of like a horizontal, good enough for everything. But then this verticalization had not yet happened in every category. But it was clear that it was emerging that consumer first, find a job, Indeed, for example, and find an airline ticket, Expedia, find a hotel, hotels.com. Again, I mentioned the classified, find a life partner, match.com, and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
It was clear that this verticalization was happening, and there would be, we believed, there would be a consumer-centric place for finding a home for sale, or home to buy, or home to rent. And that was kind of the aha, which honestly seems ridiculously obvious now. But yeah, this was 2003, 4, 5, and the world was still missing a consumer-centric real estate destination. And I'll also say one more thing. At the time, the residential real estate online was dominated by websites like Century 21 or Coldwell Banker. So imagine if the only place where you can go to research cars would be Ford website or Tesla website. Clearly, it's lacking sort of the consumer first horizontal where you can see the entire inventory.
So how did you go about building this site? Like, did you and your partner kind of just know how to build it, and did it take any financing initially, and then how did you kind of get traction for it early on?
Yeah, well, I wish there was like a 1, 2, 3, 4 or ABC steps to provide. I think one of the things that entrepreneurs always have to solve, not once, not twice, not 3 times, but nonstop, is a chicken and egg problem, where it's like, well, I can't build a product unless I get money so that I can hire people, but I can't get money unless I have a product. It's sort of a one classical example. But then there's subsequent chicken and egg problems. You just have to somehow push all things forward at the same time and solve it. And to be specific about Trulia, I had paid my way through college by programming. I was pretty technical. Pete, kind of the same thing. However, come 2003 and 4, we were not spending time coding. And I think, we could hack things together, but we were not equipped to build the first version of product. And so we did hire like our very first employee, and more or less a founding employee was Luis, who had just finished his master's in computer science at Stanford. So Yeah, we built a prototype, tried to raise capital at the same time to try to break this chicken and egg problem. It was like, well, we're making progress on a prototype. We are trying to talk to real estate agents and brokers, try to find evidence that maybe there's a business model to be had, talking to angel investors who want to see traction. So you're kind of doing that at the same time. So you're basically doing all these things at the same time. And then eventually we were able to start breaking the chicken and egg problem, and we got a $25,000 angel investment check from Kevin Hart, who was the founder of Zoom, an early PayPal person, and then founded Eventbrite. Thank you to Kevin here. 20 years later, like I don't know, he believed in two immigrants. But that's is a small example of how the snowball started rolling and how we were able to start breaking the chicken and egg cycle. But it's always very, very, very hard early, because it's like, well, how do you make progress? I don't know. You try everything, and hopefully you go forward here one step, then here one step, and then here one step, and then you kind of keep climbing up and up and up.
How did you get traction on it? So you got some funding in, you were able to build it. Like, what did you do to market it and get it out there?
Yeah, well, I think it was September 2005 when we launched. At the time, it was fashionable to have things in beta. So you have a beta, and so Trulia beta launched. Um, and I would say this, in almost any business, distribution is as important, if not even more important than a product, whether it's direct to consumers or B2B. And so you always have to think about that. Our distribution plan at the time, obviously we did a number of things, meaning some PR, TechCrunch writes about you and you get there, and some industry PR. But the number one driver of our initial distribution and eyeballs and traffic was search engine optimization, so SEO, which today, here we are 2024, anyone who's technical, anyone who knows about growth marketing, everyone knows what SEO means, search engine optimization. It was more like a black art at the time, and the competition was fierce already, but it was kind of still wide open, if you will. And we really figured out, maybe sounds a trivial aha moment here, but there are a lot of things that we do very frequently, right? So you might buy an airline ticket, I don't know, once a week, once a month, but it's frequent. You may need a hotel quite often. You may need weather quite often. So things that you do frequently, it's relatively easy to create a brand, and sort of like you come directly to, I don't know, weather.com, or you go to Kayak now for airline tickets or whatnot. Real estate, and we were focused on for sale and buying. In America, people buy a property, I think, at least back in the days, average was every 6 years. Can you imagine? Every 6 years, platforms change. So it was an aha moment for us to say, so what do you do when you want to buy a home and the internet is here and you want to do it every 6 years? You probably don't know many brands, at least early. So what do? You go to Google and you say, Boca Raton homes for sale, or Upper West Side New York homes for sale. So we said, we have to be the first Google search result, period. If we aren't, there's no way. Like we don't have, like, we raised a couple of $1 million for Series A. We can't take a, I don't know, New York Times ad or online marketing, paid marketing. We can't do that. And so SEO, search engine optimization, became our main distribution. And I think we were very, very good at it.
Interesting. So it's really just about ranking the highest.
Yeah. And honestly, you have to, there's no one template. Like today, depending on what kind of business you start, there's like, what is it? Like Facebook is saturated, probably doesn't work. Is it Instagram? Is it content marketing? Is it YouTube? Is it, do you want to start a podcast? Whatever, like, and Zynga, maybe it's already 10 years ago, the online gaming company, like they figured out how to hack Facebook newsfeed. YouTube figured out how to infect MySpace. Free-to-play mobile games came, and they kind of figured out paid acquisition and how to be on top of the app store charts. So like whatever you start, digital or something else, like there's no one template that works. You have to be kind of at the bleeding edge, because if you're just copying what people did 5 years ago, guess what? it's too saturated, it's too expensive. So to figure out the distribution that works, you have to be kind of a little bit clever about it. And there's always a new template. And so, like, if I were to start a consumer internet company now, I don't know what would be the best, but it certainly isn't the same toolkit that we used with Trulia from 2005 to 2010.
Just the last question I have on Trulia. How did the acquisition come about, and what were you thinking of doing after it happened? What were you thinking of doing with your life after it occurred?
Yes, I think you're referencing Zillow acquiring Trulia, or the two companies merging, however you want to look at it. Well, first of all, Trulia was a good business, while growing. It was an independent, self-sustaining business. We went public on 2012 on New York Stock Exchange, so we were a publicly traded company, and so was Zillow. And Zillow was our sort of friendly competitor, same space, more or less the same product. And we never started Trulia, or build it to sell it or have an exit or anything like that. We wanted to build a product that people use and then wrap around a great business, and hopefully the company is there for decades to come. However, as often is the case in any given particular industry, the fancy term is industrial logic makes sense, or industrial logic supports the fact that one or two or more than one company obviously go together and then find synergies and better scale and this and that. And so there were three companies in the online real estate space at the time. A website called Realtor.com that was owned and operated by a company called Move Inc. that was also publicly traded. Trulia was publicly traded, and Zillow was publicly traded. And you don't have to be a rocket scientist and think about game theory, but when there's three companies kind of going for it, something's going to happen. Like, two are probably going to partner up. And we always respected the folks at Zillow. It was kind of a Silicon Valley mindset and DNA, although the company was based in Seattle. Very tech first, consumer first, modern technology. We were the same. Obviously, we were based in Silicon Valley. And then this third company was kind of the sort of a 1990s website kind of approach. And so it was a natural, I guess, marriage, if you will, that Zillow and Trulia decided to team up. And then, when the price is right and shareholders are happy and think this is the right thing to do, then things tend to happen. And that's kind of how it came about. But that was not the goal. But I would say this is what happens in most industries. You have 2 or 3 or 4 companies, and usually you end up with a couple. And that's what happened. And I think everyone's better off for that, including consumers.
Interesting. Yeah, well, it does seem like that now. There's a really high quality product out there that everyone uses.
Yeah, and it's honestly, as a founder, it's still, when somebody hears that I was involved with Trulia, it's like, and it's 2024, it is, gosh, it's literally 20 years since we started, and people say, oh my God, I love this service, or I use it, or I found my home, or whatever. It's an emotional, positive reward that I still hear. And so, although Trulia as an entity is now owned and part of Zillow, the product and the website and the brand still lives and continues to grow, which is, it's, as a founder, it's special that your thing that you started or helped start 20 years later, it's still thriving. It's amazing.
So why did you decide to kind of switch to, a very different industry with Virta Health?
I did not decide. Life dealt cards that kind of forced me to play, if you will. So I guess to try to briefly explain. So I come obviously outside of healthcare. So physicist by training, that's what I studied, and then used and have used technology and computers basically all my life to build things. And if you had asked me, go and solve type 2 diabetes and obesity globally, which is what we do, 10 years ago, before starting Verta Health, I would have, I don't know, rolled my eyes and laughed you out of the room, say, are you freaking kidding me? It's impossible. Metabolic disease, which is this huge problem, type 2 diabetes and obesity. By the way, it's touching more than 60% of American adults already. Like, you can't solve it. People just eat themselves into trouble. Like, I don't think you can solve it. But that completely changed in my mind. Actually, around the same time Trulia went public, I was doing a lot of triathlons, and in fact, even won the world championships in triathlon in my age group. So I was very, very fit. And then despite that, soon after discovered that I was on my way to type 2 diabetes myself, and I was already pre-diabetic. And it just sort of blew my mind away. Like, this is ridiculous. How is it possible you fit, you exercise, and you're metabolically unhealthy? Pre-diabetes, come on, give me a break. And so that got me very interested. Wait a second, maybe there's something we don't know about metabolic health. Maybe there's something we don't know about nutrition. And maybe this clearly isn't a personal choice. Like, there's something going on here that we don't know. And sure enough, met with a bunch of scientists, and they said, hey, the way we're treating type 2 diabetes, which is we're managing the disease, it's irreversible, air quotes, irreversible. We just manage the disease with more medications to bring blood sugar down. It's wrong. It's absolutely wrong. It is factually true that it's a reversible disease with nutrition, as long as you eliminate hunger and cravings. And so you can reverse the whole disease nutritionally. And then I said, well, wait a second, that's insane. Like, if that's true, we can potentially save millions of lives. And if we can figure out a way to deliver this type of a treatment digitally, by having doctors using telemedicine, like, maybe there's a way to scale this, make it nationally, then globally available at an affordable cost. And so that kind of pulled me into healthcare. Now we're here. Our mission is to reverse diabetes in 100 million people. And it's a combination of telemedicine and nutrition through lifestyle change. So that's how I came to healthcare, now almost 10 years in healthcare.
How have you seen the success and with what you've developed to reverse it? Like, what have you seen, that you've been able to do that maybe hasn't been able to be done elsewhere?
Well, yeah, anyone who hears use nutrition to restore metabolic health, address obesity and type 2 diabetes, they roll their eyes and say yeah, but all diet and exercise programs have failed. And guess what? It is true. All diet and exercise programs historically have failed. And one of the key reasons is they rely on hunger and willpower. And so, yeah, you might lose some weight, get a little bit healthier, but then after the wedding photo, all bets are off and people regain their weight. So most importantly, we've actually demonstrated and delivered results that prove that there is a better way. And so just to give you a couple of stats, and these are both from our prospective clinical trial. We have 5-year data, and then now we have hundreds of thousands of patient years of longitudinal data. But weight loss wise, we've delivered average 13% body weight loss, which is more than 30 pounds average at 1 year, and sustained past 2 years. There's nothing in lifestyle treatments that deliver those types of results. So these are comparable to now headline drugs like Ozempic without the drug. So that's weight loss. For type 2 diabetes, majority of our patients get off of insulin and they bring their blood sugar to healthy range. So that's what we call diabetes reversal. You get rid of all your diabetes meds, which is unheard of because it's thought to be progressive. And then we bring your blood sugar to a healthy range. And perhaps the outcome that makes me personally or is most impactful and demonstrates that the treatment that we deliver goes way beyond some lab value is the fact that we have, I actually don't know the exact number, but we have many, many patients who have permanently tattooed our company logo, Virta Health logo, in their bodies. And I always challenge people in healthcare, say, show me another healthcare company, whether it's a pharmaceutical or insurance company, whose users tattoo the logo. They're so excited. They're so excited that they go to a tattoo parlor and permanently tattoo the logo. I don't know any. So that's kind of how we do. And key thing is the way we use technology to support our patients, not 3 times a year, but more like 3 times a day. And then the nutrition science that we use, which eliminates the hunger and cravings. So it makes it very sustainable and enjoyable to succeed.
So how do you plan to scale this? Because you have a solution that seems to be a really good solution and is working for people. What do you think, Sami, will take to go from where you're at now to affecting many more millions of people that need it?
Yeah, well, the boring answer is just do more of the same. The secret behind most very successful companies is not that they do 15 things pretty well. They do one thing very well and then repeat that 1,000,000 times or more over. And so on a high level, it is that. But to be more specific, the the business model that we use is what we call B2B2C. So we sell to payers, and then Virta is absolutely free for type 2 diabetes reversal and weight loss for users. So one axle of growth for us is we serve more than 530 organizations, up from about 20 early 2020, I guess. So we serve employers like United Airlines or UPS or U-Haul or Papa John's or US Foods, you name it. We work with large employers. Then also health plans like Humana, Blue City, California. We even work with some government entities like the Veterans Administration. So one axle of growth is to sign up every possible payer in America so that anyone and everyone of the 150 million plus, isn't that crazy, 150 million plus people who live with either obesity or type 2 diabetes have free access to Virta. So that's one axis just in America. And the other axis is obviously to get the word out there. We do market, like when we work with someone like U-Haul, say, they send emails, we send mailers, and we market to their employees who might be eligible together. But doing even better job in getting the word out there that, hey, type 2 diabetes is not the one-way street that leads to dialysis, amputations, and death. We can reverse it. So that's the other axle or axis of growth for us. And then, of course, our mission is to reverse diabetes in 100 million people. So there aren't 100 million people with diabetes in America. So we do want to go global as well.
Mm-hmm. Why do you want to make it free for the end customer?
It's the best price point. No, honestly, it's rare that you can. It's rare that you can. And fortunately, reversing type 2 diabetes saves so much money. In fact, about $6,000 within a year in the first 2 years on average. So $6,000 per patient, about half of which is eliminating expensive drugs like insulin. So it saves so much money that the payers, the employers, the health plans, the government are willing to pay less, obviously, than what they save. So it's very rare, actually, in US healthcare that you have an offering or treatment that makes someone better and saves you a ton of money. Because most things in healthcare, like, oh, we have this amazing new cancer treatment, it's $1 million. It extends your life by 3 months. And then somebody's facing this very tough challenge, like, do we pay $1 million for extra 3 months or not? Working with Virta, it's like, what is there not to like for? Like, we make you money, employer health plan, and your members or employees get better and maybe even take the tattoo. So that's the model. So because we want to make it free and then have, obviously, free as a price point. It doesn't leave many reasons for someone not to join. So that's kind of how we do. Now, as a footnote, if there's anyone whose employer health plan doesn't yet cover Virta, you can go to our website and sign up as a patient, meet with our doctors and so forth, and start the treatment and pay out of pocket with your credit card. So it is possible, but of course, we'd rather make it free for everyone.
Yeah, it's definitely good to make it accessible, and there's a lot of people that can benefit from it, for sure. So how do you think like AI now is going to impact your mission of affecting 100 million people that have this? Like, what are some ways you're thinking of AI will be helpful?
Yeah. Well, obviously the transformer-based large language models have sort of captured everyone's imagination over the last couple of years. That said, we started introducing AI or machine learning based features around, I think, truly in like 2017. And so on a high level, our approach has been kind of the same as Tesla's for developing self-driving, as opposed to maybe Waymo, which is that we have medical doctors on a seat making final clinical decisions like medication adjustment, deprescribing insulin, for example, and we have coaches who support our patients. So we have an expert, a driver on a seat, and then we introduce software features, AI features, to constantly improve the patient experience, improve our care team member experience, and then, of course, improve our margins. So that's the approach we've taken to AI, that we have experts on the seat, but we can use AI like Tesla to gradually help people focus on what they do best and let the software do what software can do best. So that's kind of the approach. To be specific about the things that we've already done, we started from things like risk scoring. So we could, rather than a Virta employee, a doctor, quote unquote, flipping electronic charts, like, oh, here's 10,000 charts. Like, okay, what's wrong with this? We say, here's the 3 patients in the next 2 hours that you should focus on. And by the way, here's the recommended action, or here's the recommended thing to pay attention to. So that's one example that we've been able to use AI. Second one is obviously all the language going back and forth between our patients and our care is natural language, so it's written. So AI reads that and then tries to figure out what's going on with someone, and sometimes gives automatic instant responses, and sometimes gives recommendations for our care team to do that. So those are just some of the examples. But personally, I'm very excited about what is possible with AI, because in this type of digital medicine, we can do things that a primary care doctor or any doctor in an office can never even dream of. Because the reason is because everything we do, here's a screen. Behind this one screen is a patient. Here's a screen on the Verta side, and then there's a human or software. But everything in between these 2 screens, what is it? It's ones and zeros. All we deliver is ones and zeros at Verta. So there is no reason, there's no sort of limitation to how far we can push AI in a safe and responsible manner. So I'm very excited about not just the next 10 years, but literally the next 3 years, what's possible.
Mm-hmm. So you think that there's going to be like this transformative shift with AI in terms of the, what's possible, maybe from a treatment standpoint, but also like how that treatment is really applied to people?
I would say from our perspective, it's more evolution than revolution. And again, what I mean by that is we have a product that's working. We have patients who absolutely love it, and we have clients who absolutely love the economics or the human reasons to cover it. So we have a thing that's working. And what AI can do is basically be an accelerant rather than sort of fundamentally change it. And then, of course, going into countries where GDP is way, way, way lower, you have to be able to deliver the service and the treatment at a way lower cost. And so I think AI, as one example, probably enables scaling our type 2 diabetes reversal and obesity weight loss treatment in countries where today maybe it's not economically feasible. But the basic science, what we do, how we do, we don't need AI to succeed with that. But the AI is definitely an accelerant. And there are some countries, not to mention names here, but you can guess, where the GDP is just so low that you have to be able to deliver it with dollars or tens of dollars per user to be able to scale and be successful and make the economics work.
So, Sami, just the last question that I have, at this point in your career, what do you aspire to do next? Like, what are some things that you want to accomplish? I know you mentioned some, and what, some of the future opportunities through new technology for Verta, but, what do you hope to accomplish, maybe more of a personal level as well as business-wise, over the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, well, actually, I just think about life. Like, I've never feel like I've had a job, or I don't think of career. To me, it's life. And I happen to be a lucky soul among the 8 billion or so of us and be alive. So I always think about life like, how do I make most out of these wake up hours and days that I still have left? So how do I make most out of that? And, I have a couple of categories, one of which is family, and I have 2 daughters that I want to allocate time and have meaningful experiences for myself. But in this sort of being creative and what you might call professional, I have found, and I've proven time after time for myself, that what is most gratifying and where I want to use my time, energy, and creativity is help as many people as possible. And that's basically what we're doing at Verta. And so to answer your question, I just want to use my gifts and time here to try to scale positive impact to as many people as possible. And I feel like I'm in a ridiculously fortunate position that we have this quote unquote platform at Verta, like company scaling, it's well funded, it is working. And so I don't want to get away from here. I want to make sure that we use this platform and could early start to hopefully reverse as much diabetes as we can globally. And I like to say internally, it's still day one, and it definitely is still day one. I've never thought of like job and career and this and that. I just think of how do I allocate my lifetime, and I allocate it to a couple of things, and one of which is obviously family and my kids. But then the other one is using my creativity and my few kids just to try to improve and help as many lives as possible. And it's very, very rare to be in a position where the quote unquote platform or the tools in your hands are at a scale where you can literally help not just tens or hundreds of thousands, but potentially millions of people. So that's kind of how I think of the future. Like, what else would I allocate my lifetime other than trying to help as many people as I can, besides my friends and family and whatever hobbies I have? But that's kind of my thinking. And I am not thinking like, oh, what do you do next? Like, what company you start next? And it's kind of like asking, so you're married now, but who do you want to marry next? No, like that is not what I'm thinking. And if I am ever, then things have really went by the sideways. So that's my philosophy.
Sami, I appreciate you coming on and sharing your story. I think that there's a lot people can learn from the steps that you took, and how you were really early on in the internet and saw a niche and built something that today is used by millions of people, and it's helped a lot of people find homes, get homes, and now you've taken on this mission in the health space. And I think that there's a lot of people that could benefit from what you're building, and especially making it free is really a great way to be, and so you can get it out there. So I'm excited to see Verta grow, and thanks for coming on and sharing your story.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Ben. Really appreciate it.